Hello, and welcome to Love Stories. Here we share powerful stories of love and the emotional journeys that lead to healing. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Let's explore the beauty and strength of human emotions together. He requested a divorce in front of everyone, assuming he'd come out on top. But his wife's unexpected reaction was so stunning that no one could believe what happened next. Hello, welcome. Enjoy, subscribe, and activate notifications. The afternoon was sweltering, and the living room where David's family gathered felt more like a stage for his ego. David had always been the kind of man who liked to have everything under control: his finances, his career, even the emotions of those around him. That day, he was about to deliver the biggest blow of his life, believing he would, as always, emerge victorious. The clinking of cutlery on plates echoed in the room as conversations mingled. Helen, his wife, sat beside him, her gaze serene as if she already knew what was about to unfold. "We need to talk," he began, his voice loud enough to silence the murmurs around the table. All eyes turned towards the couple. Helen lifted her head, meeting David's eyes with an unsettling calmness. "Speak here, then," she replied, her tone unhurried, fearless. This irritated him, but he smiled, a smile laden with arrogance, almost as if he was amused by his own power. "I'm in love with another woman," he declared bluntly. "Sarah and I are going to be together. I want a divorce." A deadly silence fell over the room. Relatives around them froze, some looking at Helen, expecting some kind of outburst, but nothing came. Helen, eyes locked on David's, simply tilted her head slightly. "I know," she responded, her words sharp like a thin, cold blade. The impact of her composure made David waver for a second, but he quickly regained his composure, or so he thought. "So, you agree?" he insisted. Sure, he dominated the situation. That she would beg or argue. Her gaze remained unchanged. "Yes, I agree. You want a divorce. You'll have the divorce," she replied. And at that moment, everyone in the room held their breath. Helen smiled faintly, a smile David had never seen before. Not of sadness or irony, but of someone who had finally freed herself. "But with one condition," she continued. David raised an eyebrow, surprised by the turn. "Anything," he said, thinking it would be something trivial, something he could easily handle. "You will never appear in my life again," she stated, her voice now firm, final. "No word, no visit ever." David blinked, confused. This made no sense to him. He expected tears, screams, a melodramatic scene. But there was Helen, unbreakable, accepting the divorce as one accepts the changing seasons. "Are you joking?" He laughed, trying to break the tension. "You won't see me again. Is that what you want?" "It's exactly what I want," replied Helen, looking deeply into his eyes. "And you will too, David. Believe me." The last sentence hung in the air, a foreboding of something he still could not grasp. At Helen's house after the meeting, it felt emptier than ever. Not that there were fewer furnishings, fewer objects, but the silence now resonated differently. The pain was there, silent, present in every corner, in every controlled breath. Helen wasn't crying. There were no screams, no visible despair, just an overwhelming silence that seemed to devour everything around her. In the kitchen, Martha, a longtime friend, watched her in silence as she prepared dinner as if nothing had changed. Finally, Martha broke the silence. "I don't know how you're managing it. I would have collapsed in front of everyone," she said, her voice full of compassion and confusion. Helen paused for a second, her hands still in the same calm rhythm, chopping vegetables, without looking at her friend. What would collapsing now change? Her voice was low, but firm. There were no traces of bitterness, just a raw acceptance, something Martha couldn't quite understand. "But doesn't it hurt?" "He was cruel, Helen. I was there. He humiliated you in front of everyone, and you just accepted." Martha seemed to struggle to contain her own emotions, as if feeling Helen's pain for her. Helen turned around slowly, drying her hands on the kitchen towel, her eyes reflecting a peace that seemed more unsettling than any tear could. Of course, it hurts. It hurts here. She touched her chest gently. But I won't give him the power to destroy me. Enough with what he's done. I choose how to react. Martha was left speechless, wanting to understand but realizing perhaps the depth of that silent pain. Meanwhile, David, miles away, was experiencing the absolute opposite. His house, now shared with Sarah, no longer seemed as full of life as before. The control he thought he had over everything began to slip through his fingers, and he felt increasingly restless. She didn't react, didn't scream, didn't cry, did nothing. He said exasperatedly, while Sarah just listened to him with growing disinterest. Maybe she already knew, replied Sarah, not taking her eyes off her phone. There was something in her voice that deeply irritated David. He abruptly stood up, starting to pace back and forth. She should have yelled. There should have been something. He gestured with his hands, his frustration growing with each move. Sarah shrugged, not lifting her gaze. Maybe she's stronger than you think, David. The comment, although said casually, struck him like a blow. At Helen's house, tranquility was her refuge. Friends and family visited her, some bringing words of consolation, others looks of curiosity. Many did not understand how she managed to continue with her life without being visibly affected. Her mother, a woman of few words, finally confronted her one day while they had coffee on the porch. Are you really okay, Helen? Because I don't understand how you can be so calm. Helen looked towards the horizon, the steam from the coffee gently rising in the cold morning air. I promised myself one thing, Mom. I wouldn't let this pain define me. I won't live by what he did, but by what I choose from now on. Her mother shook her head, but said nothing more. She knew Helen had her own way of processing, and despite the silence, an internal struggle was occurring inside. Helen felt the wounds, but chose not to show them. The weight of the decision she had made to accept the divorce without hesitation was something she carried with dignity, though inside, the pain was a constant companion. In the first months after the divorce, David felt invincible. Choosing Sarah seemed the ultimate triumph of his life. They were seen at parties and events, surrounded by an aura of luxury and success. He had everything, the woman he wanted, the prestige he had always sought. He felt in control, as always. The divorce from Helen for him was just a detail, something overcome and buried. Sarah was dazzling. When they walked together, he felt all eyes on them, and it fueled him. However, slowly, something began to change. Nights with Sarah became shorter, her smiles rarer, and her excuses more frequent. He noticed phone conversations that ended abruptly when he entered the room. Postponed meetings, mysterious gatherings that emerged out of nowhere. Is everything okay? David asked one evening, sitting at the table while Sarah was getting ready to leave once more for a last-minute commitment. She glanced at him sideways, seemingly unaffected. Of course, she responded without much interest. It's just work. You know how it is. A lifeless smile followed the statement, and Sarah left before David could ask more. Time passed, and David's unease grew. In the office, he began to hear whispers among his employees, muffled laughs when he passed by. He had always been the type of boss everyone feared, but suddenly he noticed looks of contempt, murmurs that ceased when he approached. What the hell is going on here? He thought, feeling the control he so valued slipping through his fingers. The truth, as always, arrived unexpectedly. One afternoon, while organizing documents in the office, he heard voices in the hallway. They were two of his employees. They didn't realize he was nearby. Did you hear that Sarah is with Carl now? Yeah, everyone knows, except the fool David. David's blood froze. He gripped the door handle tightly, his heart beating so loud it seemed to resonate in the empty hallway. Sarah, the woman for whom he left everything, was with Carl, his employee. He felt the rage grow, a rage that nearly blinded him. How could they do this to him? He was David, the man who controlled everything. How dare they betray him? At home that night, He waited, his head boiling with chaotic thoughts and the silence of the house he once valued now seeming like a black hole swallowing him. When Sarah walked in, removing her coat calmly, he confronted her, eyes fixed, chest heaving. "Are you cheating on me with Carl?" He blurted out without preamble. The impact of the words was immediate. Sarah stopped in the middle of the room, her expression frozen for a second. But then, instead of denying or justifying herself, she let out a short, cold laugh, as if the situation was ironically too evident to be ignored. "Did you really think you had everything under control?" Sarah finally turned towards him, her eyes shining with a mix of disdain and indifference. "You always thought you could manipulate everyone, do whatever you wanted without consequences. Well, here's your consequence." David could hardly believe what he was hearing. The rage gave way to shock, and then to humiliation.
"Why?"
"After all, I gave you everything." His voice was a mix of desperation and disbelief. The facade of a powerful, invincible man was crumbling before his eyes. Sarah sighed, with a weariness that seemed to have been there from the start. "You gave nothing, David. You took, and I just played your game until I no longer needed to." Those words hit him like a knife. He felt the ground open up beneath his feet. All his ambition, all his struggle, all the illusion of control, none of it mattered anymore. Sarah was leaving him. Carl had betrayed him, and he was just a lonely man, betrayed by his own ambition. Sarah walked towards the door, grabbed her bag, and before leaving, she cast one last look at David, now devastated in the middle of the room. "Good luck with what's left of your life," she said with a tone of sarcasm that made his heart sink. And then she was gone, leaving David alone with the silence, a silence far heavier than any he had ever experienced. In that moment, David realized he had lost everything, and for the first time in years, he had no idea how to regain control. That night seemed longer than usual for David. The silence in his house was deafening, almost suffocating. Sitting at the kitchen table, where he used to dine with Sarah, he stared into the darkness through the window, his mind spinning with the same question. How did I get here? Sarah's betrayal was a blow, but the emptiness she left was even worse. He was alone, more alone than he had ever imagined. And now, for the first time in a long time, he felt the weight of the decisions he had made. He picked up the phone. Helen's number was still there, not erased, as if he knew he would need it again one day. He ran his fingers over the screen, hesitant, his pride still holding his hand back. But then reality hit him hard. He had nothing left. Sarah had left him, employees despised him, and the only person who might understand his pain was Helen. He took a deep breath, like someone preparing to jump off a cliff, and finally dialed the number. On the other side of the line, the phone rang only once before Helen answered. "Hello." Her voice was calm, serene, exactly as he remembered. There were no traces of resentment or anxiety, just the voice of a woman at peace. And that completely disarmed him. "Helen," David began, his voice trembling, the name coming out of his mouth like a whisper. "It's me, David." There was silence on the other side. David held his breath, waiting for a response. When she finally spoke, her voice had no surprise, just a slight curiosity. "What do you want, David?" He swallowed hard. How to explain that he was broken, that the life he chose had crumbled, and that now he just wanted forgiveness? He tried to find the right words, but everything seemed inadequate. "I just wanted to talk to you, see how you are, how I am," Helen repeated, now with a slight touch of irony in her voice. "Do you really want to know how I am, or are you just trying to alleviate your guilt?" The impact of her words hit him like a punch in the stomach. She knew he wasn't there out of genuine concern, but out of desperation. And she was right. He remained silent for a few seconds, struggling to formulate a response that wouldn't sound pathetic. "I know I messed up, Helen. I know I hurt you in a way that no one should, but I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. I've lost everything." His voice broke at the end of the sentence, revealing the fragility he had so long tried to hide. Helen sighed on the other side. She could imagine her serene but firm face. "And what do you want from me, David? To say that I'm very sorry for you? To forgive everything as if nothing happened? I don't know, he replied, almost in a whisper, just wanting her to listen to him. There was another silence before Helen answered. David, you've always been so obsessed with control, so convinced that everything and everyone should revolve around you. And now that you've lost that, you come to me.
Why?
Because you think I'll give you what you couldn't achieve alone? David closed his eyes, feeling the tears he had sworn never to let fall begin to form. I don't know. I just feel so lost. Sarah betrayed me, and now I don't have anyone else. On the other side of the line, Helen remained silent, and then her voice came softer, but still firm. David, what happened between us was your choice. You chose to humiliate someone who is always by your side, someone who never asked for anything more than respect and love. Now you come to me asking for something you can't even name. Forgiveness, maybe? Forgiveness, David murmured, as if tasting the word for the first time. Do you think a request for forgiveness will erase everything? Helen asked now with a twinge of evident pain. The pain you caused doesn't disappear with words. And I've learned to live without you, David. I've learned to be happy away from all the control, away from everything you thought was love. He wanted to respond, say something that might reverse the situation, but nothing came. He was disarmed, powerless. For the first time in his life, David didn't know what to say, what to do. Helen breathed before continuing. I'm not going to hate you, David. I've passed that stage, but I'm also not going to give you what you want because, honestly, you don't even know what it is. My forgiveness, my compassion, or just someone to listen to you. I just wanted to see you, David whispered. I needed to see you. That won't change anything, Helen responded. The life you left behind is exactly where you left it, and I am where I should be, at peace. The silence that followed her words was absolute. David closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his choices fall on his shoulders like never before. The morning was calm, wrapped in a gentle breeze that moved the leaves of the trees as if even nature was waiting for Helen's decision. She looked out the window of her house, where she had so often, alongside David, imagined a different future. The past weighed like a shadow on her shoulders, but the present offered her a choice that only she could make. Her friends and family were gathered in the living room, all with expressions of concern and apprehension. Teresa, her childhood friend, slowly approached and took her hands. Helen, you don't have to do this. He hurt you so much. You've been strong up to here. Don't let him come back and destroy everything. Helen turned her face towards her, her eyes reflecting a mix of serenity and pain. I know, Teresa, I know what he did, but what if he has changed? What if he really is sorry? Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but laden with genuine doubt.
Sorry.
George, her brother, intervened with a firmer tone. Helen, remorse doesn't erase what he put you through, doesn't erase the humiliation, the betrayal. He made his choice, and you have the right to move forward without looking back. She moved away from them, walking towards the center of the room where she lost herself in thought. David's voice, so fragile on the phone, still resonated in her mind. For the first time, he seemed broken, vulnerable. But was this vulnerability real, or just another attempt to maintain control? Helen closed her eyes, seeking some clarity amidst the whirlwind of emotions that enveloped her. Helen, the voice of her mother, who until then had remained silent, emerged like a wave of calm. I saw you suffer. I saw your sleepless nights, your silent tears. But I also saw your strength, your ability to rise. Whatever your decision, do it for you, not for him. Helen nodded, feeling the weight of those words. Deep down, she knew that her decision couldn't be influenced by anything but what she herself felt. But what did she really feel? Was there still love for David? Or was it just the remnant of a story that should have already ended? She remembered all the good moments, the shared dreams, but also the pain, the abandonment, and the feeling of being discarded, as if she didn't matter. The sound of a car parking outside interrupted her thoughts. It was David. He had come as he promised. Helen felt her heart accelerate, her hand tightening slightly on the door frame. Her friends and family exchanged tense looks, unsure what to expect. Do you want us to stay? Teresa asked in a soft voice, but Helen only shook her head. I need to do this alone. When she opened the door, there he was, David. He looked like a different man. There was sadness in his eyes, a fragility that contrasted starkly with the arrogant man who once controlled her life. Helen, he began, his voice hoarse as if each word was an effort. Thank you for seeing me. She didn't respond immediately, just looked at him, trying to see beyond the words, beyond the appearance. She wanted to see the truth. Why did you come? David sighed, lowering his head before responding. I came because I need you. Not in the way I needed you before, not to control you, not to feel better about myself. I've lost everything, and only now do I realize that what matters most in life, I already had. Those words resonated within her. There was sincerity there. She could feel it, but the pain he had caused still burned, marking every fiber of her being. You had me, she replied calmly, but her voice was laden with pain. And you threw me away, as if I were worth nothing. I know, murmured David, taking a step towards her. And I would give anything to go back and undo this, but I can't. All I can do now is ask for a chance to show you that I'm a different man, that I've learned from my mistakes. The silence between them was dense, charged with tension and expectation. Helen crossed her arms, looking at him with an intensity that made him step back slightly. And why should I give you that chance, David? What can you offer me now that I don't already have? David blinked, as if unsure what to respond. But then his voice came out low, almost pleading, I have nothing, Helen. Nothing more than myself. And I know that may not be enough, but it's all I can give you. Helen felt a tear slide down her face, but made no attempt to wipe it away. What do you expect me to do, David? Forget everything that happened. Erase the nights I cried, the days I felt destroyed. He shook his head, unable to contain his own tears. No, I don't expect that. I just hope that you can forgive me. Not for what I did, but for what I can be now. The wind blew gently, as if the universe itself was waiting for Helen's decision. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything she was about to say. Forgiveness, David, is not something that is asked for. It's something that is earned. With that, she turned around, leaving him there alone at the door, with his words floating in the air like a silent sentence. This story serves as a powerful reminder of the strength found in composure and the wisdom in choosing our battles wisely. Helen's serene yet firm response to a public betrayal teaches us that real power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering our own reactions. Her ability to maintain dignity in the face of humiliation shows that sometimes letting go gracefully is the best way to take control of our lives and find peace. This narrative encourages us to reflect on our own choices and the way we handle life's unexpected challenges, emphasizing that our responses can define not just moments, but the course of our lives. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the story. I'm sure the next video appearing on your screen will also move you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. A big kiss, and see you in the next story.